the actual conquest of Islam, partly for religious reasons, came to India. But Islam lived peacefully with much of India since then. And India is the only country which absorbed, which synthesized Islamic culture and values, but never was converted. The only country which was conquered by Islam but never converted in all of human history after Prophet Muhammad is India. You take our own indigenous religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, the diversity and what you stated, linguistic diversity, which is absolutely amazing for people who have no clue about it. Many people don't understand that India actually has 18 plus languages, that the largest language is spoken only by 40% of the people. And all the other languages are shared in varying degrees, from 8% to 2-3% in some languages. Look at China, our great northern neighbor. It's a larger country, but 85% of Chinese is a single language and single ethnic group. Mandarin and Han people. Only 15% of the people of China have any degree of diversity. That India could actually accomplish this as a nation of immigrants, for those of you who may not be familiar, India actually is a nation of immigrants. Except that this nation is a nation of immigrants over 300-400 years. India has been a nation of immigrants for 5,000 years. And therefore, historically, we forgot the fact that we were actually immigrants. Almost every Indian is an immigrant in India, but for thousands of years. It's absolutely amazing that that diversity could be preserved, that harmony could be maintained, that the synthesis of cultures was possible. So never for a moment doubt the capacity of human cultures, not merely to conflict, but also to synthesize, to coexist, to get the best out of each other, and to learn the best from each other, and to build a civilization of extraordinary dimension. And India, therefore, has a rich civilization of 5,000 years age, one of the only two continuing civilizations of 5,000 years, along with China. That must never be lost sight of, because if in the next cultural clash, if in this tremendous competitive environment in the 21st century, if India loses out, if India doesn't draw upon her strengths, then India could simply fall behind. What happened to the American Indians? What happened to many other cultures, for instance, the cultures in Latin America? When the first battles took place in the 16th century, when they were decimated because of European power, could easily happen not because of the sword, but because of the economic forces if India doesn't really now do something important to change the way things are done. We cannot afford to rest on our laurels. We have to change the way things are done. It does not mean that India has failed in the past 60 years or so. The fact that India retained this diversity as a democratic country with liberty, with so many languages and cultures, is a remarkable tribute. The fact that actually the nation could be unified politically itself is a remarkable tribute. We just compare this with a couple of other examples. Take the case of Italy. It took 23 years of statesmanship and tremendous effort of King Leopold II, Garibaldi, Mazzini, and others to unify 9 Italian-speaking provinces from 1843 to 1871. 23 years. And all of Italy is roughly equivalent to probably one of the smaller provinces of India, not even a bigger province of India. It took 9 years of blood and iron for 39 German-speaking provinces to be united into one German-speaking nation under Bismarck, 1862 to 1871. It took about 15 months, just 15 months, to unify 540 princely states of different languages and cultures and ethnicity without a single shot being fired except in the state of Hyderabad, the Nizam's Hyderabad state, where in the police action just 5 people were killed. It took just 15 months to unify 540 very diverse, incredibly diverse princely states into one country. Never before in history and never after was some such unification of a country accomplished. It's an extraordinary feat of our freedom fighters and in the first generation after the Constitution was written. Never lose sight of that. Similarly, the ability to preserve federalism. Our federalism is now very mature. As opposed to 30 years ago when the leaders of many regional parties in India, they had conclaves and they were fighting with Delhi. Today there's an extremely mature federalism. After the United States, Indian federalism is probably the most mature one. And today much of the world is looking at India, how with enormous diversity, a country's federal structure would be preserved. Even Britain, which has had something like, say, 800 years of parliamentary history, is not able to figure out the best formula. They're now taking those hesitant steps to build a federal Britain with Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, etc. now having their own regional parliaments. But there's a long way to go. What it means is that there's nothing culturally inferior about India, notwithstanding our generation and our predecessors' sense of inferiority. There's nothing that predisposes us to failure. They're capable of succeeding remarkably if only we build institutions wisely. I remember my first visit to Europe about 16 years ago or so, probably 19 years ago. I had a Lebanese chauffeur at the time, a chap called Salim, who took me around. I was in a hotel called St. James's Court. And whenever I had a public official meeting, this chap drove me around, and that was in the heart of London. Parking was a big problem there, as it is, I'm sure, in St. Louis or in Houston or in Chicago or Washington, D.C., any place in this country. So this chap told me, sir, I have this mobile telephone. Whenever you need me after you finish your business, just give me a call from the landline. In 2 minutes I'll be there, there'll be no problem. I marveled at that wonderful convenience. And I envied that, what no Indian can really conceive of or afford is available to a chauffeur in London. And I was thinking, when will the time come when the chauffeurs in India will have this opportunity, when the vegetable vendors will have it? Little did I realize that within about 10 years' time, almost every chauffeur, every vegetable vendor, every pushcart vendor, every street hawker in India would actually have a mobile telephone. Today we have 500 million mobile telephones in India. And we're adding every month, twice the number of the total telephones we had in the whole country 15 years ago. We're adding about 15 million telephones every month, whereas we had only 7 million or so telephones 15 or 20 years ago in the whole country. That's the opportunity technology gives us. Modern technology can be transferred so easily, if only we will absorb that and apply that. And India has shown that in one sector, for instance. But we have a long way to go, as I said. We've heard that India is on the verge of greatness. It's only partly true. If you actually look back, our GDP in 1947-50 period was only 2% of the world's total output. For 18 centuries, without break, India's share of the world's output was 25%. Just get this number into your mind. India had a quarter of the world's output for 18 centuries. But when freedom came, our share was only 2%. Today, in 2010, India's share is still 2% of the world's production. We ran very hard for 63 years to remain where we were. But meanwhile, we did not remain stagnant. We actually came down. In 1991, our share was only 1% of the global output. Then we changed course, mercifully, at this